With Halo Infinite officially hitting its 3-year anniversary of its official launch, all I can think of is, it's been a little rough. I mean, my first video on the channel was centered around Halo Infinite, and looking back, since day one to now, there's been so much that's happened with this game, both good and horrifying. Whether it was the meteoric launch, breaking records while simultaneously nearly collapsing by the end of its first year, the countless Halo is Dead videos I've seen from hundreds of Halo YouTubers, to actually adding some amazing content for fans to enjoy. But where does Halo Infinite stand in its current state? What can Halo Infinite include in year 4 to give it a brand new sense of momentum? Let's pray for new weapons to be added into multiplayer, beg for Halo Studios for me to pick my own damn colors, and jump right into this. Over the last 2 years of Halo Infinite, I've created an analysis to see how bad the game actually performed, and at times I felt a sense of both mental and emotional diarrhea. And to fully break down this grade, I transform into my alternate persona, Professor Marsman, and well, he's back again for another assignment. Looking back at the past 2 years of grades, I can honestly say that Halo Infinite has two different spectrums of the grading scale. Its first year hit with a staggering C+ with its lack of any major content, with Forge essentially saving its ass from outright failing. While year 2 did see a surge in playable content with new equipment, modes, and major maps, creating some sense of accomplishment, landing with a B+. So when I look at this year's grades, yes, you can see there are some major changes to how the game feels, with a change up to a monthly update method of operations and ditching the seasons which most of us are used to seeing in most live service games. Now, when you look at the current landscape of live service games, it's pretty awful. Destiny 2 is officially over, Concord died within a month, and most often live service games come with a little bit of an asterisk, basically warning people that yes, we may fail immediately or succeed depending on if we are competent or not. So just like in previous years, I'll be grading the overall performance of Halo Infinite in basic 5 major subjects: the story additions, the multiplayer and the maps and modes, the customization and store, the overall effectiveness of the live service, and Forge along with custom games. This analysis can give us real insight on whether Halo Infinite is continuing to improve or if it's on the road to Shitsville alongside the other live service games. So looking at subject 1, we need to talk about the story. And well, I'm sure you might be asking, Mars, there really wasn't any story expansions to even grade. And you're right, viewer, there wasn't. If you remember back during the development of Halo Infinite or have viewed any of my previous videos on the topic, Halo Infinite had been developed to be a live service game, not just for its multiplayer, but to continue its story similar to how we saw Destiny. Oh, crap. Remember when it was supposed to be a decade-long game? Well, you know, that decade lasted for 15 months. We only received 1.5 story expansions in the second year of Halo Infinite. For a quick refresher, we literally had a story expansion where we literally sat around Spartans talking and not really doing anything, and then basically telling us that we're a part of the pack now for sealing Eratus away. Basically didn't do anything. And then in the very next season, we got a decent story where Eratus, or Baku, had infiltrated Din's mind, causing him to have major wet dreams. And when he goes to investigate the reasons for these new nightmares, we finish the season with the cliffhanger of Eratus taking over Spartan suits, leading us into Infection. That all sounds okay, but remember at the start of year 2, Microsoft, being the greedy asses as they were, had kneecapped or cut the entire narrative team of 343, which caused them to rule out any story expansions from here on out. So in year 3, with the expansion of Halo Infinite, we saw 0 story expansions, 0 components of the story progressing, mainly because most of the team is now working on the next game. So they find no reason to invest any new story DLC of any kind, especially because Forgers have found ways to make their own story content, and it feels like Halo Studios' mantra at this point is to give Forgers the job of making content rather than just doing it themselves. The most frustrating part of this section is that when I think about Halo Infinite and the story they were telling us from the main game, I honestly was a fan. I think they created a point where you could literally continue the story where it is now, and there are a lot of different things you could do to make it interesting going forward. I made an entire video about the future Halo 7 story and what they could do, and I think I was pretty spot on. Halo Infinite's story comes off as one of those what-if type of games. What if 343 Industries had been competent? What if Microsoft actually invested in more money in your Halo developer so they can actually meet the demand of the fans to actually be good? I mean, for what it is now, the main story of Halo Infinite is, in my opinion, pretty good. But the fact that we haven't received a single update to the story since, January of last year is pretty embarrassing. And easily, this section deserves a flat-out F for as bad as it is. Thinking of a Halo game without a story is like having a COD game without 3-lane multiplayer maps. It just doesn't really seem right. So when it comes to the next, and probably the most important subject, we need to think about the multiplayer. Now, some people say that the story is what gets people to the door, but what gets people hooked is the consistency of the multiplayer and whether or not it actually provides for the needs of the fans. And obviously, when we look at Halo Infinite, it has had a gross ass journey. Having first year, which was filled with trash, with barely any new additions, to seeing a year 2 with some great progress. I gave Halo Infinite last year an A- for actually being successful in giving us a crap ton of maps and modes that basically tripled the count of what we had in year 1. So I was a fan of it. I wasn't puking in my mouth daily. So in year 3, my expectation was that we would be getting hit with even more. And for the most part, Halo Studios did sort of deliver. In the first 4 months of the year, we pretty much were getting maps and modes, which all were W's to me. We had new variants in maps like Elevation, Illusion, and Corrosion that had used the updated Forge mode that gave us more than just the standard 4v4 maps. And they actually had aspects of using your environment to create variability, which was a shock because how often have you really seen that with 343 Industries? Thinking that they could try to be unique? I mean, not in a positive way at least. Not once. Elevation had several sections that were anti-gravity, which made you feel like you were on a space station. Illusion, being a secret-only base, was using experimental Covenant technology, allowing for Spartans to be invisible when traveling through the central section of the map. Corrosion had acid pools that injured you if you were stuck in certain areas, which was all pretty cool. And then get this, we actually got major refreshes to major fan favorite modes like Squad Battle and Husky Raid that included 16 maps between both playlists. I mean, they were really squeezing out those forges for content, huh? Which is gross, but I'm still happy at least we're getting new areas to play in. And even heading into the second half of the year, you literally see constant map additions being added with the BTB, Firefight, and Infection refreshing. That included roughly 20 maps between 3 game modes that desperately needed some new life to them. Even smaller maps like Command that bring you more in close combat with players in BTB is a variance of what we have seen and actually plays well on. I mean, most often when I think about 343 Industries, I never once had the inkling of a studio that actually knows how to include good or decent maps to their playlists. And granted, most of these maps are made by the community, which really proves that they are the real MVP here. But to find and collect these maps and plan out these additions basically on a monthly basis is not a bad thing. And I can say the same thing could be said when it comes to Halo and their game modes. Halo Infinite was essentially in purgatory for most of its first year of its lifespan. Remember the days where we only had 5 game modes and we were expected to play this game for 10 years? What a joke. Now, when we look at Halo Infinite, it's a completely different game and experience. In year 3, according to my calculations, we received, and I'm not bullshitting you here, a total of 8 game modes that are either unique or variants of other modes that we played in the past. And new modes like Juggernaut, Sentry Defense, VIP, Headhunter, and the beloved Delta Arena playlist became a staple in this game because it brought fans to bring back that old feeling of Halo 2 back to this new era. And people have been waiting for that for so long. Variant modes like Apocalypse and the Firefight Survive became fun additions for one of the best PvE modes in the series. Hell, they even paid outside companies like Forge Falcons to make a Survive the Undead Zombies mode. To this day is one of my favorites added to the series. But Mars, what if I don't want to play BTB Stockpile anymore because it sucks ass? Well, you could just input the mode you want to play in the Match Composer, which in my opinion is a game changer. And I'm sure you're gonna have fans out there that are rightfully frustrated with Halo Studios over the handling of this game. And yes, has 343 been a barrel of ass? Most definitely. You have to say, and when it comes to the modes that we were able to get in year 2 and in year 3, they sort of cooked.
Say what?
Now don't turn off the video. I get it. Is it the bare minimum for a game studio to add things for us to play and enjoy? You aren't wrong. But when it comes to how Halo Studios or 343 had done in the department of multiplayer maps and modes, I'd have to give them an A in this category. There isn't much else in this department, specifically when we think about the arenas and the ways to play. They hit the basic benchmark of giving us new things to do on a monthly basis, and that does give them a solid score. Do you think Halo Studios has improved the multiplayer output compared to the past? Drop what you think in the comments below, and throw a thumbs up and subscribe if you liked the video so far. Let's jump back to the rest of the grades. Now with customizations, it may get a little dirty. If we remember back with the days of Halo Infinite's launch, all I could remember was this annoying and nagging feeling I've had remembering what the original devs were telling me that the game's customization was going to be on par with Halo Reach. The infinite possibilities of making your character unique compared to somebody else. Then we found out that
So that was a f***ing lie.
because we were forced to pick certain armors that were only allowed to be assigned to certain cores, armors were locked behind a paywall, and simple things like picking my own damn colors was impossible. I had to equip shaders. I mean, the complete and utter morons that came up with this idea, you have to be brain dead. Oh, sorry about that, guys. So in year 2, when 343 went on their apology tour and they tried to fix a lot of this bullshit by dropping 3 armor cores started the process of giving us cross-core armors, finally achieving the idea they promised us years ago, which was great. So in year 3, their customization problem was finally achieved to a certain extent and gave the fans what they wanted, to be able to pick what the hell they wanted on their damn Spartan. About damn time. You can pick any shoulder piece, visor, helmet, color shader for any core. And whoa, even the operations armors are pretty cool. I mean, they gave us armors that are mirrored jackals, brutes, grunts, elites, and the higher ups at EA. That's great. Wait, what about those cool ass armors there? Oh yeah, that stuff's locked behind a paywall. I mean, it's only the motto of 343 in Halo Studios to take one step forward and then proceed to jump headfirst into a wall. And maybe I sound like a broken record because I've literally been saying this ever since my first video covering Halo Infinite 3 freaking years ago, but the paywall thing is a bunch of bullshit.
That is one big pile of shit.
Now, you can't tell me the store idea was a good thing anymore. I mean, the studio is already moving on to the next game, and you guys are still charging $35 for armor bundles with a minimum of $20 for 3 to 4 armor pieces. It makes me have emotional diarrhea thinking about the fact that the store gets more updates than the campaign. It makes my balls shrink. Even when they come up with something that's such a W, which I've been looking for such a long time in the exchange. Yes, we can finally just play for those schmeckle dollars, use that stuff to buy things in the exchange, and then we can now have them. But the things that we're buying are from previous events that were free and that just ran out of time to earn. And the store items don't accept these coins and only function on hard cash. I mean, I don't understand this Dave & Buster's currency thing that you're doing here and you're trying to peddle onto us, but I'm not a fan. The exchange is such a good idea that is being wasted. I thought the simple answer to make everyone happy is to include all these new items in the exchange so that if you want to buy them straight up, you could, but you could also grind for them. That would solve so many of your problems. You want to encourage people to play your game for many hours and to earn these armors just by grinding. While also, you could get a monetary benefit for people who don't want to grind that much. But no, we can't think with logic, folks. We can only think with our dick in our wallets. I may not be a game dev, but I do also like capitalism. And I know you're a businessman, but you know what pays your check? The customer. And we don't really like seeing scammers trying to pull one over on us. I'm going to give this topic a C+. The customizations that are free to earn and to just game and get are great. The completion of fully cross-core customizations and the addition of the exchange save this category from failing completely. But when you look at the possibilities that seem to have been squandered by the dev team in making a more player-friendly choice of encouraging players to, play the freaking game to earn rewards rather than pay hard-earned cash to receive cool armor, I mean, I thought that at least would be straightforward, but unfortunately, that's not the case. Next up, let's talk about the live service. And I'll be honest, the phrase live service has given me more indigestion than chugging that pink sauce stuff that killed a bunch of people. And unfortunately, in the era of modern gaming, live service titles are all the rage and basically infested our favorite multiplayer games like Herpes. And up to this point, there is maybe a handful of games that actually have succeeded in making a good live service method that not only can pump out content on a consistent basis, but actually make it fun and worthwhile to jump back in and play. Now, when we look at Halo Infinite over the last few years, it's been rough. When I first made this video series, Halo Infinite had close to near failure of live service with 6-month seasons, which was complete shit. Then in year 2, finally, and I mean finally, actually stuck to their word and made seasons 3 to 4 months long in duration, fulfilling their promise to not be complete ass and actually pretend that they are a gaming studio releasing content on a normal level. And I felt that year 2 of Halo Infinite actually had a passing grade for their live service, which was seeing growth. By the end of the year, they had announced that instead of us getting a season 6, we transitioned to now having these operations. Operations are going to be free, include armor unlocks, and released roughly every month. The positive behind this new method was that we get to have new armor customization every single month that we play. Something new to unlock, to grind for, and most important, it's free. Especially when you look at some of the unlockables that we can earn in these operations, they honestly weren't that bad. We got one of the best armor cores in the Mark IV, the various armors that mirrored banished aliens, and many exchange tokens that granted us the ability to buy armors in the exchange. Of the ones that we didn't already earn by just playing. But even that being the case, we earn more armor per month compared to what we were getting before, and it's free to earn. But the bottom line is that we get new content every month, giving us a reason to sign in, and if you are into customization or new modes or maps, the operations did provide you with something here. Now, the critiques of this system are mainly that even if I do think getting free content every month is good, if you really look at the actual content being included in these operation passes, it's roughly 5 armor pieces, while the rest is exchange tokens. So we have 1 month to go through 20 tiers, which is literally will take you probably a few days to fly through, which to me seems to be very inconsistent and lacking in depth. Sure, it's great to unlock this stuff without a paywall, but come on, what about all those store items that clearly are higher level and relatively have 20 various customizations that could be added to the operation? Why not just add those as well? And I know recently they announced that they're going to be adding store items to a now $10 premium purchase of the operation, but it just seems like for year 3, you could have easily avoided all this heartbreak if you just did that earlier. And why are you doing this? Because you're greedy as shit. I mean, you know what a layup it could have been if you just added these things to the store operations anyway and just had us purchase seasons like we used to, giving us more tiers to unlock and making it seem like it was a season. It would make life so much easier. And probably the biggest and most disappointing aspect of Halo's live service is the fact that up until this point, we've only received 1 new weapon this entire year. Granted, even though I'm happy that they finally pushed their head out of their ass and actually pulled this off in year 3, we only had 1 thing that's unlockable. Legit, only 1 new weapon. No new equipments, no vehicles, not even a variant that changes things up. Acting like we have a total of 5 devs working over at Halo Studios right now. And for that reason, I'm giving this section a C+. The consistency of releasing monthly updates is something I was very uneasy about, and it sort of deflated the Halo fanbase at first. But with the content actually being pretty fun and interesting, it did sort of change the overall outlook of Operation. But even with that being the case, how much new multiplayer mechanics were actually added or changed in these updates? Little to zero. Yes, we gained maps and modes and armors, but you're missing something that really is important about a war game. You need new weapons, or the game is just gonna feel stale. When it comes to Forge, I'll be brief, but in reality, I've said this since day 1, but Forge saved this game from crumbling. It literally was and is still the backbone to all content being released for this game. Nearly every map, game mode, and experience in Halo Infinite was developed through Forge or by forgers that clearly have so much talent. Without these forgers, I don't know if Halo Studios would even exist with how fast the game would have died. Halo Infinite had a maximum of 5 game modes for its first year, but when they released Forge in the winter update, we all of a sudden had a sense of life and purpose in Halo Infinite again. Now you might think, Mars, you're probably just overreacting. Well, if you don't believe me, since launch, with the nearly 40 maps and roughly 15 modes and variants, nearly 95% of them were built in Forge. We also received custom campaigns, a battle royale, a Warzone variant, and yeah, a zombies mode created by Forge Falcons. Entire playlists were created by forgers that were considered staple modes that the fans would literally go berserk if they weren't in the game. The Delta Arena Halo 2-like game mode that's loved by the fans was made in Forge. The beloved Squad Battle playlist that mirrors the old BTB was made in Forge. And in my opinion, most of the best maps in the game were made by forgers. Now, even with Forge being so great, the only downside of this category is the custom games could be better. Yes, the content browser is great with the ability to find created content, which I was always a fan of. But it sort of feels like with this coming to the game so late, I kind of feel like we missed out on such a great opportunity with more players available to be around to play. They have made so many improvements to Forge with the many new biomes and item pieces, which is awesome. And nearly all the new content is being pushed by Forge. So I mean, if I have to give this a grade, I'm gonna have to give it an A. It's nearly perfect with the ability to make any experience you want using this amazing game mode. I wish that it was implemented since day 1, just because I knew since I started the channel that it would be a game changer. The downside of Forge is that because it feels so good, it sort of feels like Halo Studios is basically dependent on the creators to actually pull the weight themselves rather than doing it as a dev team. Now, it is true that Halo Studios is also working on these maps themselves, yes, but at least you have to admit that these creators deserve to be paid for all the work that they're doing. You guys are the real MVP. If I had any money, I'd give you some. So when looking at Halo Infinite in its 3rd year, it seems like it's improved in some ways while also losing momentum in areas compared to year 2. The customization had gotten so much more additions with new armors, a crap ton of variants that we can use, but somehow I still can't pick my own colors, and it seems like they still haven't learned their lesson about the horrendous store prices. Cheap bastards. It's not perfect, but I always enjoy customizing my dude to the highest ability. Forge has been carrying this game since day 1, If you look at this game from its launch till now, it looks like a completely different experience. Even though we lost seasons, it sort of feels like we're getting these monthly updates, and it actually feels like there's something new to jump into every single month. It feels like a live service game. I honestly am happy with how we have been able to get so many different modes and maps recently. My only wish is that we actually get some new weapons other than just the Avenger. If I was giving a grade to Halo Infinite in its third year, I'd say it's a solid B-. Some good improvements from last year, while also finding ways to miss the mark on easy layups. I think compared to the other live service games, it does stand on its own as a pretty damn good multiplayer game to play, especially when most PvP games find ways to speedrun their ass right into the dumpster. If I was giving feedback to Halo Studios on how I'd work to improve Halo Infinite going forward, my suggestion would be to invest in your forgers and pay them handsomely to give them a much needed motivation boost to either mod content or go into overdrive and create some wild experiences similar to Warzone or something new. Fans are dying to get some PvPvE Halo content, and I know that I'd love to see a return to that battlefield. And between new maps that emphasize vehicle combat that give BTB and squad battles some love, along with some much needed new weapons and vehicles, this game will definitely get a much needed momentum boost as we head into the next Halo projects that are in the pipeline. I'm a Halo fan, and I have been one for most of my life. Halo Infinite, in my opinion, is considered one of the best feeling Halo games I played in a while. So if you're able to continue making content that's meaningful, give us new experiences, and appreciate the community for being loyal, I know for a fact year 4 of this game will be one hell of a time. What would you want to see in Halo Infinite include in its year 4? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like this type of content, drop a thumbs up and subscribe to support the channel. I made a video on what I would like to see in the future of Halo's multiplayer and campaign, so check out the video in the end screen. Until next time, this is Marsman signing off. Game on.